Yo, we back out here again, trying to get 3 degrees. Actually, hold on. I think it's 2 degrees buffer now. That's a story for another time. But anyways, we out here today. Like, subscribe, share. You know how we roll. We out here today talking about the final projects that are coming up due. Now, this video might play in real time. Today is what? December 3rd. And the last videos that you've been seeing happened over the summer. So it's been several months since those videos aired. But the thing is, now is the time when all the final projects are coming up due. December 1st, had a draft due, had another sermon due, got something else due end of December, and my last project is due the end of January. So this is the gauntlet that we're in right now, and it's about to go down. And the first one that I'm going to be working on is actually supposed to be a sermon on a topic of our choice, and the topic that I chose was nature, solitude in nature, and kind of how that benefits us in our spiritual experience. Now, to give you a little bit of background on my relationship with spirituality and Jesus, like growing up, I was not really a fan of it. I didn't see the purpose of it, and it was very hard to lock into something that I didn't have much of an interest in, especially if I'm doing it. I wake up in the morning, I pull out my Bible, I'm sitting in bed trying to pray, falling asleep. Y'all know how it is, right? But over the years, it's interesting. I didn't think that it could be more than that. And I didn't really realize that you could do something different and still have a good spiritual relationship. You know, I was just going based on what I was told and based on what I had seen from the people around me, my parents, people in church, etc., etc. And it just seemed like, I got the impression that, I don't know that this is what I had been expressly taught per se. I don't want to blame anybody for that. But I definitely felt that if I wasn't doing the spiritual thing or the devotional thing this way, then it didn't count, or it didn't matter, or it didn't mean as much. It wasn't as valuable as unless I had done it according to those specific standards. Now, this would change when I would go out to Palau and really get to experience nature on another level. The year before I went out to Palau, I had done this thing called canvassing, and there will definitely be some more stories on canvassing to come. But the point is that we got to read a lot of different books, one of them being Steps to Christ, which I will start doing videos on once again here shortly as well. So don't miss that. Really cool insights and stuff. But my favorite line from the book is actually the very first line that appears in the book. Chapter 1, God's love for man. Nature and revelation alike testify of God's love. And I find this such an interesting concept because we don't really hear it taught in church or spiritual applications or school or whatever, that, hey, you can learn about God's love from nature. We understand that God created it and that there's some cool things that we can experience, and we say, yeah, you can get peace from being out there. It's good to explore, but only within certain times. You know, don't do it on the Sabbath and get out there, because then you might be breaking. And all the, you know, there's all these lines and regulations that kind of go around that. You appreciate nature to a certain degree, and then you don't really step into it any further than that. But if nature and revelation alike testify of God's love, what we're really saying is that nature is just as valuable as studying the Bible and the things that God directly reveals to me as I study through scriptures in terms of learning about his love. So if all I ever do is study and commune with God indoors, from my bed, from a table and a chair, from a desk, you know, then I'm actually missing out on the complete picture of what I could be getting about God's love. And when you think about how amazing nature is, and the amount of lessons in the unknown and everything that's out there, man, it's just opening up huge potential for how we can understand and appreciate communion with God and the love of God. So you fast forward back to when I'm in Palau for this first time, right? And instead of just getting up and doing my devotions indoors, I said, well, shoot, the sun gets up, the sun rises around 6 a.m. So I'm going to go out, and when I wake up, I'm going to do my devotions and watch the sunrise. And when I tell you about how spiritual of an experience it is to see that kind of a sunrise, man, it's absolutely incredible. But it being able to take that in and also compare that and be communing with God and studying the scriptures while I'm taking in the sky, it was something else. It was something else. Now, one of the reasons I really love this topic is we talk a lot about how, togetherness and the Christian community, the spiritual community, having these people that you go to and you kind of you lean on in a lot of different respects. But solitude is perhaps an underrated aspect of the spiritual experience, because everyone wants to be together and no one wants to become like a law unto themselves, which makes sense. But at the same time, there's some value that can be had there, because now it's just you and God, and you don't have to just take as fact everyone else's experiences and what everyone else has to say about God and spiritual things. You get to experience it and learn it for yourself. And then afterwards you come back and you compare with other people's experiences, and you come to a better baseline, and a more what's the word I'm looking for? A more balanced approach to some ideas that you may have gotten being out on your own. And then you take it further and you look at the Bible and the experiences of people that they had in solitude, in nature, and what it meant for them in terms of their relationships with God and how they were boosted. You take Moses, for example. You take Jacob wrestling with God. You take David out here in these caves. You go all the way down through the history, and you get to Jesus himself, and it talks about how he spent time alone in nature. And particularly with Jesus, it's very fascinating because he goes out and he's in the mountains. It says he would go off to pray. He'd go off by himself to pray. He'd go off to commune with God. And after every single one of these instances, he comes back and does some crazy miracle. One of them being the walking on the water with Peter. And it's amazing to think, we gloss over that part of the story as if it didn't have any impact on the next story or the next piece of the puzzle. But it's like, no, there was something very powerful that happened here, something that Jesus was able to gain in his time in solitude, in nature, that allowed him to connect and commune with God in such a way that he even had like I can't say like a bigger or a better blessing. Like I don't know if I can fairly say that, but it's not without coincidence that the Bible is mentioning these things that we pass over and we speed right past when we come to reading the stories. There's nothing glamorous about Jesus went into the mountains to pray. There's something very glamorous about walking on the water with Peter, but one of them preceded this. And one of them, like these instances, precede story after story after instance after miracle that Jesus is involved in. Gethsemane. He's out there by himself a little ways off from the three disciples that he took with him into the garden. And what is he doing? He's preparing to do something absolutely amazing, to take the cup that he doesn't want to take. And it's in that spot, that solitude in nature, where Jesus finds the peace to say, not your will, but mine be done. You think about that. And there's so much. I don't know, it blows my mind. And this is not a complete topic. Granted, like I said, this was supposed to be turned in a couple days ago. But you can kind of see where I'm going with this. And I think there's so much there that we can benefit from. So many lessons that we can learn from nature itself. But I think that there's something there when it comes to communing with God in nature that is different from when we commune with God inside our rooms, inside our houses, indoors. I think there's a big difference, and I think something that we're missing out on. I remember working at a place called Heritage Academy. I was running their canvassing program for a few years, and oh man, it snowed. This was in Tennessee. It snowed a lot over the winter that I was there, and I remember waking up as it was snowing. We had maybe 6-7 inches of snow on the ground, And I walked outside all bundled up, grabbed my stuff, and I walked out into the woods. There was like this area where we used to have a campfire. Nobody was out there that early in the morning though, but I would go out there and it was just quiet. And those of you who have experienced snow and have been out in the snow, there's like, spiritual is the only word that I can think of when it comes to talking about nature this way. But you're walking through the woods, it's quiet, you don't really hear anything. Everything is overlaid with the snow, and you're walking, all you can hear is the crunch of the snow and maybe the leaves underneath that as you go. And there's just something about being out there. It's like you're disconnected from all the noise and the technology and all of the everything else that's, I don't know, a part of our daily experience. And when you separate from that, when you unplug from that by going into nature, you're plugging into something else, something deeper, something more powerful, something more spiritual. And so I think there's a lot there. The last thing I'll say on this is, obviously you don't want to go so far as to worship the nature or to feel like it's something, I don't know, metaphysical or spiritual that you're getting simply from the nature. We look at it from the lens of God created this and God is in this to a degree. The reason I bring that up is because in the early stages of the Adventist church, at least, there was a conflict between the Adventists and a guy by the name of Kellogg. All right, this is a medical Kellogg. I think he was the cousin or brother of the guy who did the cereal Kellogg, that guy. But he started off as an Adventist, and I think the book he wrote was The Body, the Temple, or something, The Living Temple, something like that. And basically his idea was that nature, like God was in nature. Like if I'm going up to this tree, like that's God, that kind of a thing. And so the reason I find that so fascinating is I think he might have taken it a step too far. But I think in early Christians' desire to not go too far or to make sure that everything was like this and right in line, that they totally discounted the idea that God does communicate through nature, and that we, if we spend time in nature, can connect with God in a way that we can't if we're indoors. I think there's something there. So all of that to say, that's what this sermon paper that I'm going to be writing is about. And it's supposed to be, 15 pages, something like that. To give you some context, for me, I like to have maybe 4 pages tops for a sermon. That's like between 26 minutes worth of talking. So 15 pages, you're talking about an hour and a half to 2 hours worth. That's much too long. That's the kind of sermon that would put me to sleep when I was growing up and hated Christianity and church and all that, but that's another story. So we're gonna have to break it a little bit and see how we approach this thing. But yeah, solitude in nature. Don't sleep on it. No pun intended. Go ahead and commune with God in nature and let me know what you think. Let me know if you feel different or if the experience for you is different than just going through your devotionals and you're praying indoors by your bed, trying not to fall asleep. Let me know. But yeah, until then, 2 degrees buffer. We out here, and I'll catch you in the next one, all right? Peace.